Rain streaked the floor-to-ceiling windows of Sterling Technologies, blurring the Seattle skyline into watercolor smudges. Victoria Hayes stood before the mahogany desk, her pulse hammering against her ribs as Dom Sterling's steel-blue eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made the air feel thin. "I need you to come with me Saturday night," he said, his voice low and deliberate. "To the Children's Hospital Foundation gala." Victoria's fingers tightened around the leather portfolio she held. 3 years as his personal assistant had taught her to anticipate his needs, but this was different. This crossed lines drawn in corporate policy and common sense. "Mr. Sterling, I don't think that's appropriate." "Nothing about my life is appropriate anymore." He stood, moving to the window, his reflection ghost-like against the gray afternoon. "Everyone in my circle sees dollar signs when they look at me. Board members, investors, even the women who smile at these events. They're all calculating their next move. And I'm not." The words came out sharper than she intended. He turned and something raw flickered across his face. "You're the only person in this building who's ever told me no. Who treats me like I'm human instead of a checkbook with a pulse." The vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. This was the man who commanded boardrooms, who built an empire from nothing, now standing before her with shoulders that carried too much weight. "Why me?" she asked quietly. "Because you understand what matters. The foundation, the work we do, not the champagne or the networking. Just the work." He paused, his jaw tightening. "And because when I look at you, I don't see someone trying to take something from me." Thunder rumbled in the distance. Victoria's mind raced through 1,000 reasons to refuse. Professional boundaries, the whispers that would follow, the fact that her heart had betrayed her months ago, feeling things for this man that an assistant should never feel for her boss. "I need to think about it. Take the weekend." His eyes held hers. "But Victoria, I'm not asking you to pretend to be someone you're not. I'm asking because of exactly who you are." She left his office with her chest tight and her carefully constructed walls beginning to crack. That evening, her sister Emma's voice exploded through the phone. "Are you insane? You're thinking of saying no? It's complicated, Em. What's complicated? A gorgeous billionaire wants to take you to the social event of the year." Victoria stared at her reflection in the darkening window of her small Capitol Hill apartment. "He's my boss. And those people, they'll eat me alive. I've seen them at corporate events. Designer everything. Connections that go back generations. I'm not that world. So what? You're brilliant. You run his entire life. Stop acting like you're not good enough." But that wasn't it. Victoria had learned young that wanting things, reaching for them, only led to loss. Her father's death had taught her that. The scholarships she'd fought for, the student loans she still paid, the careful budgets and sacrifice. Safety came from staying in your lane, from not pretending you belonged somewhere you didn't. "I'll think about it," she said again, but her reflection looked unconvinced. By Monday morning, she'd made her decision. She arrived at the office 30 minutes early, as always, coffee ready, schedule prepared. When Domin emerged from the elevator at 8 sharp, she fell into step beside him. "Mr. Sterling, about Saturday." He stopped walking, his expression carefully neutral. "You're going to say no." "I'm going to say yes." The words felt like jumping off a cliff. "But I need you to understand something. I'm coming as your colleague, not arm candy, not some Cinderella story for your friends to gossip about. I'll represent the foundation with everything I have, but I won't pretend to be something I'm not." A slow smile transformed his face, and for a moment, he looked years younger. "I wouldn't want you to." "Then we have an agreement." "We do." He extended his hand, and when she took it, the contact sent electricity up her arm. "Thank you, Victoria." As she walked back to her desk, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Heard Sterling's bringing his assistant to the gala. How deliciously inappropriate. This should be entertaining. "See you Saturday, darling." Her blood ran cold. Someone was watching. Someone new. And suddenly, Saturday night felt less like an opportunity and more like walking into a trap. She looked up to find Daman watching her through his office window, and the weight of what she'd agreed to settled like stones in her chest. What had she just done? The week crawled forward like a slow-motion car crash. Victoria threw herself into research, memorizing donor names and foundation statistics until her eyes burned. But the anonymous text haunted her, a digital ghost that reappeared each night with new messages. His friends are already laughing. "You know that, right? Department store girl playing dress-up. This will end badly," she never responded. Never told Daman. Instead, she buried the fear deeper and focused on what she could control. Friday afternoon, she left work early for the first time in 3 years. Her mother's house in Bellevue smelled like vanilla and old books, exactly as it always had. Eleanor Hayes emerged from the kitchen, flour dusting her hands, eyes bright with the kind of excitement Victoria had forgotten how to feel. "Ready to find you something spectacular?" They climbed to the attic, where dust motes danced in strips of dying sunlight, among forgotten Christmas decorations and boxes of childhood memories. Eleanor pulled out a garment bag Victoria didn't recognize. "Your father bought me this for a charity auction in 1995. Eleanor's voice went soft as she unzipped the bag. "He said it made me look like I could conquer the world." The midnight blue gown spilled out like liquid starlight. Simple, elegant, timeless. "Mom, I can't." "You can. You will." Eleanor pressed the dress into her hands. "Your father believed that dignity isn't about money or status. It's about knowing your worth. You wear this and you remember that." Victoria's eyes burned. "What if I embarrass him? What if they're right and I don't belong there? Then you show them that belonging isn't about where you came from." Eleanor cupped her daughter's face. "It's about where you're going." Saturday arrived with gunmetal skies, and Emma bursting through Victoria's apartment door at dawn, arms full of makeup and determination. "Today, we make you unforgettable." Victoria submitted to the transformation, trying to ignore the way her stomach twisted with each passing hour. The dress fit perfectly after Eleanor's alterations. The makeup artist Emma brought made her eyes look luminous, mysterious. Her auburn hair, usually pulled back in a severe bun, fell in soft waves around her shoulders. When she finally looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. "You look like you belong in a museum," Emma breathed. "Or a magazine," their mother added. But Victoria saw something else. She saw a woman playing a part, and the costume fit too well. That scared her more than anything. At 6:30, her phone rang. Damon's name lit up the screen. "I'm downstairs." Her heart stopped. "You're early. I wanted to make sure you were okay, that you hadn't changed your mind." A pause. "Victoria, if this is too much, we can still cancel." She looked at her reflection one more time. The woman staring back looked brave, felt terrified. "I'll be right down." The elevator ride felt like descending into deep water. When the doors opened to the lobby, Damon stood by the entrance in a black tuxedo that made him look like he'd stepped out of an old Hollywood film. But it was his expression when he saw her that stole her breath. Complete, absolute, stillness. Victoria. Her name came out rough, almost reverent. "You look uncomfortable," she offered, trying to lighten the moment. "Stunning." He moved closer, and she caught the scent of his cologne, something dark and expensive. "I need to tell you something before we go." Her pulse spiked. "What?" "There are people at this event who will try to make you feel small. Friends of mine who don't understand why I brought you instead of someone from their circle." His jaw tightened. "I need you to ignore them. Every word, every look. Are you warning me or preparing me?" "Both," he offered his arm. "But I'll be with you. The entire night. You're not facing them alone." She took his arm, feeling the solid warmth of him through the expensive fabric. The town car waited outside, sleek and black, and as they drove toward the venue, Victoria watched the city lights blur past. "Why does this feel like we're going to war?" she asked quietly. "Because we are." Damon's hand found hers in the darkness between them. "But Victoria, I've been to war before. I know how to win." The car pulled up to the Four Seasons Hotel, where lights blazed and cameras flashed. Victoria's breath caught as she saw the crowd of photographers, the parade of designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. "Ready?" Damon asked. Before she could answer, her phone buzzed one last time. "Enjoy your night, assistant. Tomorrow everyone will know exactly what you are. I made sure of it." Her hands went cold. Someone here had been sending those messages. "Someone waiting inside. Victoria?" Damon's voice cut through the panic. "What's wrong?" She looked at him. at the concern in his eyes, and made a choice. She'd come this far. Fear wouldn't turn her back now. Nothing. She slipped her phone into her clutch. Let's go show them who we are. They stepped out of the car into a storm of camera flashes, and Victoria lifted her chin, channeling every ounce of her mother's grace and her father's dignity. But as they walked toward the entrance, she caught sight of two men in tuxedos watching from the lobby, their expressions cold and calculating, Damon's friends. The ones who doubted, and suddenly Victoria understood. Tonight wasn't just about a charity gala. It was about proving she deserved to stand beside Damon Sterling, or watching everything crumble when she failed. The ballroom glittered like a jewelry box, crystal chandeliers casting diamonds of light across marble floors and silk-draped tables. Victoria felt every eye turn as she entered on Damon's arm, the weight of judgment pressing against her skin like humidity before a storm. "Breathe," Damon murmured, his hand covering hers. "You belong here." But the two men approaching told a different story. Jonathan Pierce and Richard Hawthorne moved through the crowd with the casual arrogance of inherited wealth, their smiles sharp as broken glass. "Damon," Jonathan's eyes raked over Victoria with barely concealed disdain. "What a surprise. We expected Catherine Blackwood tonight." "Catherine's attending with Senator Morrison," Damon replied coolly. "Gentlemen, this is Victoria Hayes." "Oh, we know exactly who she is." Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Your assistant. How progressive of you." Victoria felt the cut of his words, designed to reduce her to nothing more than hired help. But before she could respond, a woman's voice cut through the tension. "Victoria Hayes? The Victoria Hayes who spearheaded Sterling Technologies' literacy initiative?" A striking woman in emerald silk approached, her expression warm and genuine. "Dr. Sarah Chen, head of the Children's Hospital Foundation. I've wanted to meet you for months. Your work connecting our hospital with educational technology has been transformative. 40 schools now, isn't it?" Victoria found her voice. 43 as of last week. We just partnered with 3 more in South Seattle. Remarkable. Dr. Chen linked her arm through Victoria's, effectively cutting Jonathan and Richard from the conversation. "You must tell me about the expansion plans. Damon mentioned you're piloting a program for immigrant families." As Dr. Chen drew her into conversation, Victoria felt the knot in her chest loosen. This was familiar ground, not small talk or social games, but real work that mattered. Over Dr. Chen's shoulder, she caught Damon's expression. Pride, relief, something deeper that made her heart stutter. The evening flowed like champagne, bubbling and bright. Victoria found herself surrounded by foundation board members, tech innovators, and educators who actually cared about the work. She spoke about literacy rates and technology access with the same passion that drove her at the office, and slowly, the role she'd been playing melted away. She wasn't pretending anymore. She was just Victoria. "You're a natural at this," Damon said during a quiet moment, his hand resting at the small of her back as they moved toward the silent auction tables. "I knew you would be. Your friends don't seem convinced." "They're not my friends." "Not really." His jaw tightened. "They're ghosts from a life I'm trying to leave behind." Before she could ask what he meant, Jonathan appeared at Damon's elbow, his voice low and urgent. "We need to talk. Now. It's about the Tokyo deal." Damon's expression hardened. "Not tonight. It can't wait." 5 minutes. The terrace. Victoria felt Damon's reluctance, but Jonathan's insistence carried an edge of genuine urgency. She touched his arm gently. "Go. I'll be fine." "Stay where I can see you," Damon said, and the protective intensity in his voice sent warmth through her chest. As he disappeared toward the terrace, Victoria wandered to the silent auction, studying items donated for the cause. A weekend in Paris, a signed guitar from a famous musician, a private dinner with a tech mogul, admiring things you could never afford. She turned to find Richard beside her, a champagne flute dangling from his fingers. His eyes were glassy, his smile cruel. "I'm admiring the generosity of donors who care about children's health care," she replied evenly. "Is that what you're calling it?" He leaned closer, and she smelled expensive scotch beneath his cologne. "Let me tell you what this really is, Victoria. This is Damon's charity case. You. He feels guilty about his success, so he picks a pretty assistant from the secretarial pool and plays Prince Charming. Makes him feel noble. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Richard pulled out his phone, and Victoria's blood turned to ice as she recognized the anonymous text from the past week. I've been watching you all night, trying to figure out why Daman would humiliate himself like this. Then I realized, he's not trying to elevate you. He's trying to prove something to himself. Why? The word came out strangled. Why would you do this? Because Daman Sterling thinks he's better than us, built his empire from nothing and looks down on those of us born into wealth. Richard's expression twisted. But you? You're proof that he's not special. Just another rich man playing with his assistant's feelings. When this ends badly, and it will, he'll finally understand that money doesn't buy class. And you can't fake belonging. Victoria's vision blurred. Every text, every cruel message designed to undermine her confidence, had come from someone Daman called a friend. The betrayal cut deeper than she expected because it confirmed her worst fears. She didn't belong here. Never had. Never would. Nothing to say? Richard smirked. That's what I thought. You're wrong. Victoria's voice came out steady despite the storm inside her. Not about me. About Daman. He doesn't need to prove anything to people like you, and neither do I. She walked away, her mother's dress swirling around her legs, her head high even as her heart cracked. She needed air, space, distance from the glittering lie of this evening. The terrace doors beckoned, and she pushed through them, expecting solitude. Instead, she found Daman locked in conversation with a woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine, Catherine Blackwood, the woman Jonathan had mentioned. She stood too close to Daman, her hand on his chest, her expression intimate and possessive. Just tell her the truth, Catherine was saying, that this whole evening is about making me jealous. It worked, Daman. I'm here. I'm willing to give us another chance. Victoria's breath stopped. Catherine, you need to leave, Daman said, but his voice lacked conviction. Why? Because of her? Catherine laughed. Come on. We both know what this is. Your assistant is lovely, but she's not your equal. Not really. Stop pretending and come back to where you belong. With me. With people who understand your world. Victoria turned before Daman could answer, before she could hear him agree or disagree. The truth didn't matter anymore. Richard's cruelty, Catherine's claim, the way Daman hadn't immediately shut her down, it all painted the same picture. She'd been fooling herself. She made it 3 steps before Daman's voice cut through the night. Victoria, wait. She didn't. Couldn't. Her heels clicked against marble as she fled toward the lobby, toward escape, toward anything but the humiliation burning through her chest. But Daman caught her arm, spinning her around with enough force to steal her breath. What did Richard say to you? The truth. Tears she refused to let fall burned behind her eyes. That I don't belong here. That this was all some game to you. That's not true, isn't it? She pulled free from his grasp. You brought me here to prove something. To your friends, to yourself, I don't even know anymore. But I'm done being your project, Mr. Sterling. Find someone else to make you feel noble. She walked away, and this time, he let her go. Victoria made it to the lobby before her legs gave out. She collapsed onto a velvet bench, her mother's dress pooling around her, her carefully constructed composure shattering. She'd been right all along. Wanting things, reaching for them, only led to loss. And she'd lost more tonight than she knew how to measure. Victoria sat on the velvet bench, staring at her trembling hands when footsteps approached. Not Daman. Dr. Sarah Chen, her emerald dress shimmering under the lobby lights. I saw you leave. She settled beside Victoria with the grace of someone who'd witnessed 1,000 social disasters. Want to talk about it, or should I just sit here and judge people's terrible fashion choices with you? A broken laugh escaped Victoria's throat. I think I just made the biggest mistake of my professional life. Walking away from Daman Sterling? Or agreeing to come in the first place? Both. Neither. I don't know anymore. Victoria wiped her eyes, careful not to smudge her makeup. His friend Richard, he's been sending me threatening texts all week, making me feel small, and tonight I caught him bragging about it. Then I saw Daman with his ex-girlfriend, and she was saying, I'm not his equal, and he didn't even deny it. And I just panicked, understandably. Dr. Chen's expression turned thoughtful. But Victoria, I've known Daman Sterling for 5 years. I've watched him donate millions to this foundation, transform children's healthcare in this city, and I've never, not once, seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. You don't understand. I do, more than you think. Dr. Chen leaned back. I grew up in a trailer park in Tacoma. My mother cleaned houses. When I got into medical school, people told me I didn't belong, that I was taking someone else's spot, that I'd fail because I didn't have the pedigree or the connections. She smiled. Want to know what I learned? Victoria nodded. Belonging isn't given. It's taken. You decide you deserve to be somewhere, and then you prove it every single day. Not to them. To yourself. Before Victoria could respond, raised voices erupted from the ballroom. Damon's voice, sharp with fury, cut through the ambient noise. Get out. Both of you. Now. Victoria stood, Dr. Chen beside her, as they moved toward the ballroom entrance. Through the doorway, they saw Damon confronting Jonathan and Richard, his expression carved from ice and rage. You've been harassing Victoria? Threatening her? Damon's fists clenched at his sides. We've been friends for 20 years, and this is who you really are? We were protecting you, Jonathan said, but his bravado was cracking. From making a fool of yourself. The only fools here are you two. Damon's voice could have stripped paint. Victoria is worth 100 of everyone in this room combined. She's brilliant, compassionate, and stronger than either of you will ever be. And you tried to destroy her because of what? Jealousy? Boredom? The pathetic need to feel superior? Damon, calm down, Richard started. I'm done. With both of you. With this entire shallow, poisonous circle. Damon pulled out his phone. I'm calling security. You're banned from every event I host, every foundation I support. And if you ever contact Victoria again, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what you did tonight. Victoria's breath caught. He was burning bridges for her, destroying friendships that predated his fortune, choosing her over the world he'd known his entire adult life. The sacrifice wasn't hers to make anymore. It was his, and watching him make it shattered something inside her. Security arrived, escorting Jonathan and Richard out through a side entrance. Catherine Blackwood followed, shooting Victoria a venomous glare that promised this wasn't over. The ballroom erupted in whispers, hundreds of Seattle's elite watching Dom and Sterling's social circle implode. Dr. Chen touched Victoria's arm gently. Still think you don't belong? Victoria couldn't answer. She pushed through the crowd, ignoring curious stares, until she reached Damon. He stood alone in the center of chaos, his chest heaving, his eyes wild with adrenaline and fury. You didn't have to do that, she said quietly. He turned, and the raw emotion on his face made her heart stop. Yes, I did. Victoria, I'm sorry. I'm so damn sorry. I should have protected you from them. Should have known they'd try something like this. You couldn't have known. I should have. He ran a hand through his hair, destroying its careful styling. I brought you into my world without considering how cruel it could be. How cruel they would be. You deserve better than this. Better than what? Better than me. The words came out broken. You were right. I did bring you here to prove something. Not to them, to myself, that I could be more than just the billionaire playing games. That someone like you could see me as just Damon, not the empire or the money or the status. But I was selfish. I put you in danger because I wanted something I had no right to want. Victoria's throat tightened. What did you want? You. The admission hung between them like a confession. I've wanted you since the day you walked into my office 3 years ago and reorganized my entire filing system without asking permission. Since you told me my speech for the investor meeting was terrible and rewrote it in an hour. Since every morning when you hand me coffee and smile like I'm not the most impossible person to work for. The ballroom faded. The staring crowd disappeared. All Victoria could see was Damon Sterling, vulnerable and terrified, offering her his truth. I can't do this anymore, he continued. I can't pretend you're just my assistant. That working with you doesn't make every day better. That watching you tonight, brilliant and beautiful and brave, didn't make me want things I promised myself I'd never want again. Why? Her voice shook. Why did you promise that? Because everyone I've ever cared about leaves. My parents died when I was young. The woman I almost married left me for someone with better connections. I built walls so high, I forgot what it felt like to want to tear them down. Until you. Victoria thought about her own walls, her careful life, the safety of never reaching for more than she deserved. But standing here, watching this powerful man crumble for her, she understood something Dr. Chen had tried to teach her. Belonging wasn't about deserving. It was about choosing. I'm terrified, she admitted. Of this, of you, of wanting something that could destroy me. So am I. He took a step closer. But Victoria, I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you. I don't care what they think, any of them. I care what you think, what you feel, what you want. What if I want you? The words came out raw and honest. What if I've wanted you for so long that I convinced myself it was impossible? That I wasn't enough? You're everything. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. And if you'll let me, I'll spend every day proving that to you. The ballroom erupted in applause. Not mocking, not judgmental. Genuine, warm applause from donors and foundation members who'd been watching their drama unfold like a real-life fairy tale. Dr. Chen stood at the front, grinning like she'd orchestrated the whole thing. Kiss her already, Sterling. We don't have all night. Daman looked at Victoria, question in his eyes, waiting for permission. She gave it by closing the distance between them, by pressing her lips to his in a kiss that tasted like champagne and courage, and choosing to be brave. When they finally broke apart, breathless and smiling, Daman whispered against her lips, "Does this mean you're not quitting?" "Not a chance." She laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. "Someone needs to keep you from making terrible speeches." But as they stood there, wrapped in each other and the promise of something new, Victoria's phone buzzed one last time, a message from an unknown number. "Congratulations on your fairy tale. Shame it won't last. Some of us don't forget. Some of us don't forgive. Enjoy it while it lasts, Victoria Hayes. Because nothing gold can stay." The warmth drained from her body. Richard and Jonathan were gone. Catherine had left, but someone else was watching. Someone who wanted to destroy what they'd just found. And suddenly Victoria realized their battle wasn't over. It had only just begun. Monday morning arrived with Seattle rain and a message that changed everything. Victoria sat in her apartment, coffee growing cold in her hands, staring at the email that had appeared in her inbox at 6:47 a.m. The sender, Sterling Technologies Legal Department. The subject line, "Immediate review required." Her fingers shook as she opened it. "Ms. Hayes, it has come to our attention that your relationship with CEO Daman Sterling presents a conflict of interest per company policy section 4.12. Effective immediately. You are being offered a transfer to our New York office with a promotion to Director of Foundation Operations, or voluntary resignation with a generous severance package. Please respond within 48 hours. The apartment walls closed in. This wasn't random corporate bureaucracy. Someone had weaponized policy against her. Someone powerful enough to mobilize legal without Daman's knowledge. Her phone rang. "Daman." "Don't answer it," she whispered to herself. But her hand betrayed her. Accepting the call, "Victoria, where are you? You're never late." His voice carried concern, not anger. "Is everything okay? I need to talk to you, in person, but not at the office." Silence. Then, "I'll meet you anywhere. Tell me where." "The park. Where we had lunch after the hospital visit last spring." 1 hour. She hung up before he could ask questions, before the emotion clawing at her throat could escape. The rain had softened to mist by the time she reached Discovery Park. Daman stood by the bluff overlooking Puget Sound, his suit jacket dark with moisture, his expression carved from worry. "You're scaring me," he said as she approached. "What happened?" She handed him her phone. The email pulled up. Watched his face transform from confusion to fury to something that looked like devastation. "I didn't authorize this. I didn't even know." He was already dialing his phone. "I'm calling legal right now. This is unacceptable." "Don't." Victoria's voice stopped him. "Because they're right." "What?" "Our relationship does violate policy, and if we fight this, it becomes a spectacle. Every business outlet will cover it. Your investors will question your judgment. The foundation will be dragged through scandal." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I've been researching all morning. Fighting this protects us but damages everything you've built. I don't care." His voice was raw. "Let them write their stories. Let the investors complain. I'll burn it all down before I lose you. But I care. Tears blurred her vision. That foundation provides health care to children who have nothing. Those literacy programs change lives. Your company employs 15,000 people who depend on you making sound decisions. I won't be the reason any of that suffers. So what are you saying? Damon's hand shook as he reached for her. That you're choosing the company over us? I'm choosing what's right over what I want. The words tasted like ash. I'm taking the New York position. The devastation on his face mirrored the breaking inside her chest. Victoria, no. We'll find another way. I'll step down as CEO. We'll hire external mediators. Anything but you leaving. You can't step down. Sterling Technologies is your legacy. Your parents would have wanted you to protect it. She touched his face, memorizing every line. And I can't be the person who destroys what you've built. I love you too much for that. The admission hung between them, beautiful and terrible. You love me, he repeated, like the words were both salvation and damnation, and you're still leaving. Because I love you. She kissed him then, pouring every emotion she couldn't voice into that single moment. This isn't goodbye forever. We just need time. For me to establish myself in New York. For the attention to die down. For us to figure out how to do this without destroying everything else. Time. He laughed bitterly. How much time? 6 months? A year? 5 years until everyone forgets and we can try again? I don't know. Honesty was all she had left. But I know that if we fight this now, we'll lose each other anyway. The pressure, the scrutiny, the constant battle. It'll poison what we have before we even begin. At least this way, we protect it. We protect us. Damon pulled her close, his face buried in her hair. I just found you. I can't lose you this fast. You're not losing me. I'm choosing us by choosing this. Victoria held him tighter. Love isn't always about staying. Sometimes it's about knowing when to step back, so you don't destroy the thing you're trying to protect. They stood there as the rain returned, two people choosing sacrifice over selfishness, love over possession. Finally, Damon pulled back, his eyes red-rimmed. Promise me something. Anything. Promise that when the time is right, when we've done everything we need to do separately, you'll come back. That this isn't you running away, it's you giving us a chance to do this right. I promise. She meant it with every fiber of her being. When I'm director of foundation operations, when I've proven I earned it on merit. When your company is stable and the gossip has faded, I'll come back. We'll try again. The right way. I'll wait. His voice broke. However long it takes, I'll wait. 3 months later, Victoria stood in her Manhattan office, watching snow fall over Central Park. Her desk held photos of Emma's graduation, her mother's birthday dinner, and one picture she kept face down when colleagues visited. Damon and her at the gala, dancing under chandeliers, moments before everything changed. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Still think you made the right choice? She'd received variations of this message weekly, never from the same number, always designed to make her doubt, to make her regret. But she'd learned something in 3 months of building a new life. Strength wasn't about never doubting. It was about choosing your path despite the doubt. Her work phone rang. Damon's assistant. They scheduled quarterly calls about foundation coordination. Professional, distant, necessary. Mr. Sterling is available for your 2 p.m. call, the assistant said. Thank you. I'll dial in. At precisely 2 p.m., his face filled her screen. Still devastating. Still hers, even across the distance. Director Hayes, he said formally, but his eyes betrayed him. Mr. Sterling. She matched his tone. I've received the Q4 projections for the literacy program. The numbers are exceptional. They talked business for 45 minutes. Funding allocations, partnership expansions, strategic growth, everything professional and appropriate, and slowly killing her inside. As the call ended, Damon's mask slipped for just a moment. Victoria, yes? I miss you. Every day, every hour, I miss you. I miss you too. Tears threatened. But we're doing this right. Building something that lasts instead of something that burns bright and fast. I know. He smiled, and it was real, despite the sadness. I'm proud of you. The work you're doing there, It's extraordinary. I learned from the best. They ended the call. And Victoria returned to her reports, to her carefully constructed new life, to the woman she was becoming separate from Dom and Sterling. But late that night, her personal phone rang. His number, the one she'd never deleted. "I know we agreed to keep distance," he said without preamble, "but I needed to hear your voice. Not the director, not the professional, just you. Just me is tired and lonely and wondering if we made a terrible mistake," she admitted. "We didn't." His certainty anchored her. "We made the hard choice, the right choice, and someday, when we're ready, we'll make the choice to try again. Together. Promise?" "I promise. However long it takes. I'm yours, Victoria Hayes. Distance doesn't change that." "I'm yours too," she whispered. "Always." They talked until sunrise, about nothing and everything, about the people they were becoming in the space between. And when morning light broke over Manhattan, Victoria understood something profound. Love wasn't just about being together. It was about becoming people worthy of each other, about choosing growth over comfort, sacrifice over selfishness, tomorrow over today. She didn't know when their story would continue. 6 months, a year, maybe longer, but she knew with absolute certainty that it would, because some things were worth waiting for. Some people were, worth becoming better for. And some love stories needed time to grow, strong enough to weather anything. Victoria Hayes was building her own empire now, and when the time came, when they were both ready, she would return to Seattle, to Damen, to the life they'd promised each other, not as his assistant. Not as someone trying to prove she belonged, but as his equal, his partner, his choice. And he would still be waiting, because that's what real love did. It chose, it sacrificed, it waited, and it always, always found its way home. The end.